Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel, that is the R in the RK Stumblingbear, and I'm a reader and a writer. And I'm back to do my May reading wrap-up. And I'm just gonna jump in because I have quite a few books that I read in the month of May. I finished A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett. If you remember my April wrap-up, this was one that I was still reading. I knew I was going to finish it in May though. This is his sequel to The Tainted Cup, which I loved in December when I read it, and this has been nominated for the Hugos. So I knew I was going to want to read A Drop of Corruption. And honestly, if you haven't read The Tainted Cup, you could also jump into A Drop of Corruption. There might be some confusion on what a Leviathan is, but otherwise, like for the mystery story, you don't need the first one to enjoy this. Not really. There's some through threads, but they're pretty minor. But in this, we're following Din and Anna as they have gone to another far reaches of the Empire to work on a mystery, to solve a mystery of how a dead man could have died in a locked room and then his body disappeared. Again, out of a locked room. And that is only like the tip of the iceberg. This book deals a lot with autocracies and government and what form those take and how are people working within a government or the government they have or not. Where are the inequalities? Who gets exploited? So there's a lot of political commentary in this book, but the way it's wrapped up, it doesn't feel like it really hits you on the head. You realize a lot of this more when you read the author's endnote. When I was reading that, I was like, oh yeah, I see the choices that were made in the societies that were depicted here and in what ways. Really enjoyed this. Then the next book I finished was Starstruck by Emma Bennett. She's one of my AuthorTube friends. I have a failed romance reading vlog. Month of May, I celebrated 15 years of marriage, and so I thought it'd be fun to read contemporary romances because I had 6 on my shelf, actually a little bit more because I have several Emma Bennetts that I haven't read yet. But I had chosen Starstruck because I like the cover and I like stars and space. But this is a contemporary romance book where the main character has officially gotten divorced. Kate, I think is her name. Yeah, Kate. She's been separated for 2 years, but just the finality of it was making her sad. And she turned on the TV and saw that this famous couple had just split, and she was actually high school friends with the guy. So she texted his number. She still had it from when she was a kid. And for anyone who thinks, no, that people don't do that, I do that. I tend to not delete phone numbers from my phone. I will go through purges like once every 10 to 15 years. So, I mean, I still have people in there from my college days. I don't have any high school friends, but anyway, she still has his number. She, calls him, leaves a voicemail saying, hey, I just got divorced. If you need anything, I completely understand what you're feeling right now. She owns a business where they have rental cottages on her farm property. And all of a sudden one is booked, but it's out of season. It's not a name she knows. She's getting it ready. And then to come to behold, it is her old friend, Joe. Joe got her message. He still had the number on an old phone that he kept for his mom's use. And so, yeah, he got her message, looked her up, found out where she was. And it ends up his marriage had been on the rocks and already been over, but just hadn't been announced to the public yet because his wife wanted to basically be the one to do that. So emotionally, he is already ready to move on, and he had a crush on Kate when they were in high school. So yeah, it's a cute of, hey, missed opportunity, second romance kind of thing, where they get together. They're both emotionally there. It's not a cheating plot, even though yes, technically Joe is still married. For paparazzi, public image reasons, he was waiting. Also, both of them like have 5 or 6 year olds, and you get to have this discussion of parents and really see that you see in many instances parents, especially single parents, are going to think of their kids before they think of themselves. I read this in one sitting, didn't expect that, but absolutely loved it. So if you like contemporary romance that has actually pretty good communication and is just sweet, you need to check out Emma Bennett. That is basically what she is known for. I then finished The Butcher of the Forest by Premi Muhammad. If you have watched my Nebula's Novellas video, you will have seen my extensive thoughts on this. But this is a dark fantasy story, very much in the vein of original fairy tales where they were dark and they were for adults. Don't expect happy endings, basically thing. Premi Muhammad is just magical, really sucks you into that, and really brings about a world of the Fae-esque that is monstrous, and then at the same time has the discussion of who is a monster and what actually makes a monster a monster. I then finished Wakers of the Cryo Crypt by Nathan Cusack, and this is one of the self-published science fiction books that I was reading. And this is about far future. Humans are extinct, robots and AI are the intelligences on this earth. They have revived Earth to be a garden paradise again after humans destroyed it. There's a cave where humans are found, and not all of the artificial intelligences want humans to be alive, because some of these AIs were alive and sentient while humans were there as well. So you get some thriller-esque plot stuff. At the beginning, you're following Shulvara, who is one of the robots who find the humans. And then later it changes the perspective to Lazarus, who is the human that gets woken up, basically. I kind of wish that the author would have continued to go back and forth, because later on there were some instances where somebody was like, oh yeah, I talked to Shulvara and this is why I'm here to save you, moments with Lazarus, or with Laz as he goes by. And I was like, man, it would have been great to see Shulvara's thinking and planning of that. Very much this book has like ethical discussions of climate change and how humans are ruining the planet. But yet, do we have a right to continue to exist? I then read The River Has Roots by Amal El-Motar. This is one of my anticipated 2025 reads. This was a novella, which I didn't know that originally when I had picked it. And this deals with kind of fairy tale stories as well. And it does play with some darker fairy tales, but whereas The Butcher of the Forest just is a dark fairy tale, this one plays with the dark fairy tale, but it feels light as well. And I'm thinking that's just how El-Motar, it's her writing style, because you're not actually removed from the horror of what happens, but you get to definitely see a very close and tight sister bond and the love that comes from that. And I think that helps to lessen the darkness of the story. I then read Breaking Her Rules by Deidre Ann Anderson. This is the second in a series trilogy. I'm not certain. With contemporary romance, you can read it out of order. And in this one, we have Jackson, who is a quarterback football player, and Camila, who is a sports physiotherapist, and they happen to be roommates. And Jackson is best friends with Camila's brother Luis, who I guess had begged Jackson to let Camila stay with him because she had a nasty breakup, had issues with housing. And when Jackson first was like, yeah, not a problem, and Luis made him promise, just don't hit on my sister. And he's like, yeah, but well, that won't happen. Then he sees her and it's like, oh. But it doesn't take off from that point. You get it much later where Jackson's just being an asshole to her. All in the name so he doesn't lust after her, or so at the very beginning we're already having a communication issue where one person's just a dick and not communicating at all, and Camila's pissed off. And I'm really surprised that she didn't tell her brother, hey, your best friend is a dick, switch me homes, because her brother has a place of his own. Just be like, you live with your best friend, I will take your studio apartment, kind of thing. When Jackson and Cammy decide to do their casual sex, like the conversations they have to each other while this is happening are good. The spicy scenes are point on, so much fun. But whenever I had to read chapters when it was in their head, I'm just like, who is this person? This is not the same person who was having a conversation. I think if this had been expanded and some of those issues could have been seen, it would have been better. Like, give us the beginning where, hey, Luis is like, hey, my sister really needs this, can you help me? And then she walks in, he's just like, oh, this is going to be a problem. Just jumping into him being a dick and then we find out all this other stuff afterwards, I didn't like it. So for me, some of the structure of this is not what I liked. But like I said, when Jackson and Cammy are together and actually talking, they do communicate well. It's when they're separate and in their own heads, I just wanted to hurt them. So we have Breaking Her Rules, contemporary romance, which, to be fair, contemporary romance typically isn't my thing. So trying something new in the name of my 15th year anniversary. I then read Lost Ark Dreaming by Sui Davis Okumboa, and this also was a novella nominated for the Nebulas. Again, fuller thoughts are going to be in that video, but the quick synopsis of this is the world has experienced another flood, and outside of Nigeria, a series of towers have been built on a man-made island. Now only one of those towers are still functional, and you have a very caste regimented society. You have the lowers who live underneath the water level. You have the midders who in the middle, and then you have, I forget what the term was, but the uppers, I think, who are like the prestige and high. There is another race that has like developed to live in the water, and one of their species comes to the tower, but in the past this species has been seen as an enemy. A lot of Afrofuturism books very much mix magical elements with sci-fi elements, and that's just normal. So that's kind of what you have going on here with this other society. It's more like a magical creation through Mama Wata, which I don't know a lot about that mythology, but basically we have the showing of how not all information has been given to this society in this tower, and wanting to expose and give fuller information. Kind of struggle story. I enjoyed it. I then read The Murder Algorithm by Wilson Kincaid, and this is another book that I have because of the self-published science fiction contest, and this is a sci-fi thriller. This is set in the future where everybody has little nanobots that basically allow them to stream their lives 100% of the day. So imagine you have robots all around you and you technically can control it. it's like a new evolution of Facebook and social media platforms. Twitch, streaming constantly. And the main character is someone who wants to get big on this social media site called Starcy and ends up getting framed for murder. He doesn't trust the police due to other things that have happened in his family's history. And him and his team decide they're going to solve the murder themselves. Well, then you get a second perspective of actually, you get three perspectives of this. The second perspective is one of the detectives from the social media section who is trying to solve these murders, because there have been other murders where people have just gotten so mad they've killed somebody, but the only way they knew of this person was through social media. And then we get the third perspective is of Maddox, who is he is the code creator for the Starcy social media site. And I would probably say that he's a sociopath. It has a kind of a fun little twist at the end that I greatly enjoyed. I then read Role Playing by Kathy Yardley. This is another one that basically I just read kind of in one sitting. And I'd heard so much about it. Was on many favorites lists of last year, so that's why it was on my radar. And it has two older protagonists. The guy is 50, the woman is 58, and they end up meeting through an online role-playing group. She thinks he's a college student, and he thinks that she's an octogenarian. And the why of that is actually really funny. And it's something they go, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So they end up becoming like online friends. They know they live in the same town, and then events happen where they end up coming to meet in person and realizing their mistake. And then realizing, hey, we've had these feelings for each other. Maybe, we could pursue something. But it is very much a slow burn, especially because the guy, Aiden, is demisexual, demi-romantic, which I completely understand. So it takes him a longer time to realize that he's actually interested in her in that way. But I love the open communication that Aiden and Maggie have with one another. In this one, there is no third act breakup. There's just, hey, we have to deal with some other family issues that have been they get the strength to deal with those other family issues, so they go deal with them, and then they come back. We're like, yes, we love each other, let's continue on with our path. So that was also very refreshing. And then the final book that I finished in the month of May was The Briar Book for the Dead by A.J. Slatter. This came out last year, and this follows Ellie Briar, who is from a family of witches but is not a witch herself. And then after her grandmother dies, she ends up finding out she has the power to see ghosts. However, the town she lives in, it's always been thought that ghosts don't exist. In a family where her cousins are all magical, she kind of keeps this closer to her vest for a while. Also, some other disturbing events are happening in this town, and her family, the Briars, are very influential. The Briar Witch is supposed to be like the head of the society, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And I just love this. This is a very atmospheric read. If you were looking for something that you want to read around Halloween time, this would atmospherically fit in. It would, in my mind, it actually kind of goes later because it does go into winter time period. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I know that this is part of a bigger universe, but this is the first book I've read, and so what I'm saying is you don't need to have read what came before to enjoy this book. Now, what am I currently reading going into June? I am currently working on the Lake of Souls collection. The Lake of Souls, the first novelette at the beginning, was nominated for the Hugos, and I'm just planning to read this collection for our fantasy bingo. I am working on The Brides of High Hill by Nevo. which is a novella in her Singing Hills series following the cleric Chi. And in this one, the cleric Chi is gone with a bride to, as they're headed towards the bride's wedding potentially. And then I'm trying to get as much read down because I'll be participating in the amazing readathon hosted by Brie over 4 Paws in a Book. And it's a competitive readathon, but you have prompts that drop like every 2 to 3 days. So I'm trying to not have a lot. Oh, I forgot. I'm also working on reading Eat by Jessie Brown, which is another self-published science fiction book. This one is a sci-fi horror where a genetic strain has gotten out of the lab and is either killing people because they can't survive the virus, or for the ones that it has not killed, it is turning them into creatures connected to animals. We've had some people described as a snake, which creepy for me. Also, there's a snake on the cover, so if anybody is doing or as this is the year of the snake, if anybody needs a snake on the cover prompt and you like sci-fi horror, this is a book for you. But they've also described werewolves. There's been a spider creature, some other insects. We've met a guy who is more lion-esque. However, where the other ones seem to be more feral, he seems to be more present and lucid, at least in a human way. So I'm looking forward to see how this goes. So that's what I've read in the month of May. I would love to know what your favorite book of the month of May is. And if you've read anything that I have, I'd love to know your thoughts down below. Thank you, and have a great day.